Hey guys, so for this week's Art Explained, I'm going to be showing you all about this. This is a new item that I bought on the vacation I took in Nice for the Christmas holiday. It is called a Funpump. Now I had never seen one of these before, and what it is basically you put in water with pigment, water-soluble pigment, so no acrylics or anything like that, and then you pump it. I'm not sure if you can hear it. It is actually pumping air into the system here, which will then make this an aerosol. If you can hear that. So I'm going to get started here and make up a pigment. You can pull it all apart here. You can see how it puts the air into the system. And I'm going to start here just on some normal craft paper since I've never used this before. I've looked up how to use it, and I think I understand how, so we'll see how it goes. And if it goes well, then I'll switch to actual watercolor paper and we'll get to try and do an actual painting. So let's get started. Okay, so here we go. I've got my color here. This is just a small amount of water. You can see with just one drop of paint with a liquid watercolor in yellow. So I started out with such a small amount because I don't know how it's going to take, and I thought that I could gradually change the colors as I'm going since I only have one pump. So it doesn't say how many times, but I'm kind of going on resistance because right there it's really hard, so I'm going to stop there and give this a try. I'm going to be spraying from the other direction, not here where the camera is. It's a little cramped. I'm not sure how much the camera is picking up. It is spraying, not as high as I thought it would. They suggested that we hold it like this and then spray, and not spray at an angle, which I think makes sense as there's an actual straw here pulling up the liquid. So it is going down. It is very light. I think if anything I'm going to go add a couple more pigments to this. It's just very, very light. Okay, so I've added some more pigment. It's much darker there, you can tell. And we'll try this again. This gives some bigger splotches. It's not super gradual. You know, it doesn't give down the exact same layer all the time, so you need to be okay with these big splotches that happen. I think the longer you hold it down, the less that happens though. It's more like your first spray and you get that large dots like right there in the middle of the camera. But you can see here, let me zoom out. The paper definitely has a yellowish tinge to it now. I'm going to let that dry and we'll come back to it probably in about 20 minutes or so. Okay, so it's dried basically. I'm just going to take you in here to see it a little more closely. You get some very interesting textures here. Yeah, this is just from the first coating with the yellow. I like what it's doing. I'm not sure how I would do it in a painting besides creating layers of color with texture. I think I'll play around with that after I start with a more reddish color that I'm going to spray over this and see how the colors layer on top of each other. A bit disappointed with the splotchiness here, but if it's the aesthetic you're going for, it could be very useful. Yeah, it's not exactly an aerosol and it's not exactly an airbrush. I like the texture, I do. It's just very interesting. I've never used anything like this before. So that's a closer look at what's been happening, and I'll put the camera back and get a mix of more red colors in with the yellow and get a different color here. So So here's the new color. I've added about 2 to 3 drops of the liquid red in there. It's a bit orange. We'll see if it really shows up or not. It's interesting. This isn't watercolor paper, so I might be judging it a little differently. Seeing how it pulls together here. Yeah, I'm not sure how I like that, but again, this is just a regular piece of craft paper. This is not watercolor paper, so the way that it soaks into the other paper later might be completely different. So my judging it at this point might be unfair. So gonna let this dry, and then I think I might pull out some watercolor swatches, smaller pieces, and see what happens then. So this is not exactly watercolor paper, but it is paper that can be used with inks and painting, and it's a heavier grain. So we're going to try this out. This is just trying to put something on top of it to kind of get that empty space. So I'm going to do 2 color changes here and with 2 hearts. Okay, so it's at the point now where it's starting to bead. See there, I'm going to stop there, let it dry, and then mix this into a bluish purple, I think, and then move the heart over and then spray again. Okay, so here it is dry. I'm going to move the heart over and use this new blue color that I made. I tried mixing it with the pigment I had and it turned to mud. I guess they don't mix very well, even though technically it shouldn't have turned to mud. But I'm hoping on the paper, since it's a red and this is a blue, that we'll end up with a slightly purplish hue. We'll see. Yeah, okay, so it did end up looking like mud. I should have thought that because that's what happened when I mixed the colors here. This is again just a test, so I'm gonna let it dry and we'll take a look at it. I am learning a lot from this process, but I'm not sure how often I'll be using this item for my drawings. I have one other test that I want to do with some masking fluid, and then we'll get a larger piece and I think maybe mix up what's happening. We'll see. Okay, so now it's dry. I'll take up there so you can kind of see what I was doing. It's just a test. This is not a wonderful piece of artwork or anything, but looking at how it dried, I see a lot of things I'm going to try differently in this next test. I'm going to do very small spurts and not so much concentrated at one time. And from a higher up vantage point, I think I was getting a little too close and it started to bead too much. So I'm going to take this away now. So here we have a very quick sketch of Cora. I use this masking fluid to mask out her face so that it won't get any of the paint when I put it down. So that was just a few seconds. I'll zoom in here so you can see what's happening. So it's very dispersed. I'm going to let this dry because there's no large water droplets on it. So I'm going to come back to it in about maybe 10 minutes and do another spray. Okay, so it's been drying a little bit. I'm going to do another layer. I've added a little more pigment, so hopefully it will go on slightly darker faster.